We were sold a fairy tale for more than 10 years. A huge Oransaw compound, 19 children, and a set of uncompromising family ideals. There was more to the Duggar family than just a TV program. There was a movement. Jim Bob Duggar, the patriarch who established an empire based on power, family, and faith, was the only man at its center. He then carried out the second stage of his grand plan, strategic expansion through marriage, as his daughters reached adulthood. He took great care to choose marriages for his daughters who he felt were trustworthy, devoted, and would fit in well with his structure, strengthening his patriarchal authority and ensuring his dynasty's survival for many centuries. We believed we were seeing a love story when the Duggar daughters were married. In reality, we were witnessing a corporate takeover. Ben Seawald, Jeremy Vuo, and Derick Dillard, three important sons-in-law, were not intended to be his daughters' partners. In his army, they were supposed to be lieutenants. However, Jim Bob made a deadly error in judgment. He viewed them as resources to be controlled. He never thought they would become into separate actors. These three guys are currently engaged in a cold battle over the family's soul. And how it turns out will define the Duggar legacy for the next 20 years. The patriarchal princes and the Duggar sons-in-law's covert power struggle. This is the tale of how a monarch's attempt to protect his realm unintentionally planted the seeds for its demise. The Duggar Report welcomes you. Years of observation, analysis, and a thorough examination of the covert power dynamics of America's most powerful, well-known family of fundamentalists. In a way you have never seen before, we will connect the dots. You're in the right place if you think there's more to this story than what you've ever seen on TLC. Please do me a favor now. Click like, and then subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss a single aspect of this research, so turn on alerts. The Gambit of the Patriarch. You must first comprehend the kingdom in order to comprehend the conflict. The work of Jim Bob Duggar. The world wasn't created by chance. It was painstakingly created based on a blueprint that a contentious group supplied. Bill Gothard founded the Institute in Basic Life Principles, or IBLP. The IBLP is not a place of worship. It is a whole system of living. It advocates for a rigid separation of powers, with God at the head, followed by the husband, wife, and kids. This dynamic isn't limited to families. The chain of command is divine. All facets of life, including courtship, and there are strict extra-biblical standards that regulate everything from attire to finances and education. According to the IBLP, your complete submission to the authority above you is a prerequisite for success, wealth, and God's favor. Jim Bob Duggar did more than merely adhere to these rules. He rose to prominence as one of their most well-known advocates. His family embodied the IBLP promise in real life. You will be blessed if you abide by the guidelines. His ultimate propaganda instrument was 19 Kids and Counting, a TLC program. It smiled the. He became a prominent person in the fundamentalist world after his approach became successful in millions of homes. And complete control was at the heart of this system. Monetary authority. Jim Bob reportedly paid his kids little to nothing for their labor, managing the family's earnings from the show, homeschooling, limiting access to the outside world, and above all, relational control provides social control. There was no romance under the Duggar courtship system. It was a commercial exchange, intended to maintain ideological integrity. A prospective son-in-law was not merely getting married to a daughter. He was applying to work for the family company for the rest of his life. Jim Bob had to vet the appropriate applicant. He had to share the IBLP's philosophy. As his new headship and authority figure, he had to be prepared to subordinate to Jim Bob. In order to establish new Duggar Empire branches that would still report to headquarters, the sons-in-law were supposed to be franchise managers. They were never expected to be independent thinkers. That was the strategy, and it worked for a time. The rebels' asset analysis. The first asset is Jill Duggar's spouse, Derick Dillard. He seemed like the ideal recruit when he first came on the scene. Although he was pious, he hailed from a more conventional Christian upbringing. At Walmart's corporate office, he held a prestigious position as an accountant. He appeared completely enamored with Jill and was well-groomed and kind. He must have appeared to Jim Bob to be a safe beta man, having a strong work history who might be shaped to suit the strict framework of the family. While Derick was in Nepal, Jim Bob personally facilitated their relationship by connecting him and Jill thousands of miles away. This match was handpicked. Derick was a fantastic fit for the role. He accepted the conventions of courtship. He was fluent in IBLP language. He was incorporated into the reality television family company. He was a devoted soldier for the first few years. He co-starred with Jill in the spin-off program, Counting On, and resided in Jim Bob's house. For all intents and purposes, they were a model franchise. Jim Bob didn't see the warning signs, though. The IBLP system did not produce Derick. Having learnt to wear the uniform, he was an outsider. And inquiries come from outsiders. In 2017, the first fissure in the facade was discovered. Dillard launched a string of contentious tweets about Jazz Jennings, another TLC star. The reaction was quick. Under tremendous public criticism, TLC released a statement announcing that Derick's appearance on the show would end. This story initially appeared to be about a reality star who was fired for offensive remarks. However, a much larger drama was developing behind the scenes. We think the Cold War started at this point. It was more than just a hassle to lose the TLC payment. It was a war declaration. Because money is regulated in the Duggar kingdom. Inside information. The agreement. The Duggars have been plagued by a question for years. How did the kids be paid for the years of work on TV? They weren't, Derick said. He and Jill were never compensated for their work on Counting On, as he has openly claimed. He asserted that they were volunteers who were coerced into spending hundreds of hours recording because they thought it was a ministry. However, our study points to something even more combustible, based on allegations from those who know the inner workings of the family. It was the reason they weren't paid, not just the fact that they weren't. The one hypothesis that has. There is a rumor going around in Duggar watching circles that Jim Bob signed a single, comprehensive contract with TLC as the legal guardian of his minor children. He and he alone were purportedly granted complete authority over all payments under this deal. The children were contractually obligated by the document their father had signed for them as minors, even after they grew up and were married. Legally speaking, they were still his workers. Consider that. You have a child of your own and are an adult married couple. Additionally, your dad is still governs your ability to work, your income, and your reputation. Derick lost more than just his job when he was let go. He and Jill were excommunicated financially. All of a sudden, Jim Bob, the man who had been supporting his family, was the one whose system had left them penniless. This was more than a dispute. This treachery was terrible. This marks a significant turning point in Derick Dillard's life. He worked as an accountant. He was numerate. He was aware of contracts. And he became aware that he was confined by a system that he couldn't battle with the weapons at his disposal. Therefore, he took a step that nobody in the Duggar orbit could have foreseen. He made the decision to create new weaponry. Derick Dillard started attending the University of Arkansas for law school in 2010. According to the official narrative, he was seeking a different line of work in order to better support his family. That's the version from the press release. The story that emerges from the strategic analysis is different. Derick Dillard did not attend law school with the intention of practicing law in a small community. He attended law school in order to become fluent in his adversary's language. He was preparing himself for a legal and PR struggle against the man who had introduced him to the family. Every lecture on family law, every contract law subject, and every lawsuit course was all weapons. His public remarks started to shift. They had evolved beyond irate tweets. They grew more accurate and strategic. He began to speak in legalistic terms. He expressed a desire to reveal the fraudulent deal and rip back the veil. He publicly acknowledged that he was authoring a tell-all book with Jill, one that would describe the emotional and financial coercion they experienced. Derick is the rebel because of this. He has no intention of changing the system from the inside out. He is constructing a case to destroy it. Having witnessed the inner workings of the Duggar machine, he is now contesting the validity of the American legal system by utilizing authority greater than Jim Bob's. He has a law degree and is a whistleblower. Additionally, to a patriarch like Jim Bob, whose authority rests on secrecy and uncritical obedience, a disillusioned insider with a subpoena poses the biggest threat. Derick is battling for more than simply his family's financial gain. He is attempting to undermine Jim Bob's power from the ground up. From the outside in, he is an existential menace. Theologian asset analysis. The second asset is Jinger Duggar's spouse, Jeremy Vo. Jeremy Vo, an intellectual opponent, was arguably more dangerous than Derick Dillard, the outsider who turned into a rebel. First glance. For Jim Bob, Jeremy was a huge reward. A clergyman who was once a professional soccer player. He had a level of worldly credibility that the Duggars sorely needed, and he was gregarious and articulate. He was not a product of the limited ecosystem of the IBLP, but he was a man of God. He had a degree. He was advanced. He was probably viewed by Jim Bob as a valuable addition who could improve the family brand. Their courtship was odd from the start. Deep affection was more important than side hugs and chaperones. Theological conversations. Jim Bob most likely interpreted this as an indication of Jeremy's devoutness and earnestness. He did not understand that Jeremy's theology was more than a variant of the Duggars' faith. Its basic foundations were directly and fundamentally threatened. Through the IBLP, the Duggars follow a legalism-based form of Christianity. It is a set of regulations. If you dress appropriately, listen to appropriate music, adhere to appropriate courtship protocols, and comply, your authority, and you'll be blessed by God. It is a faith based on performance. However, Jeremy Vuolo is a product of Calvinism, a popular style of Reformed theology. In short, the IBLP teaches that you maintain your relationship with God by abiding by a long number of regulations that were created by humans. According to Jeremy's theology, you can only be reconciled with God by His grace, and all those extra-biblical regulations are not only superfluous, but also a risky diversion from the real message. The first is a control system. The other is a liberation system. The purpose of Jeremy's visit was not to dispute with Jim Bob over Jinger's skirt length. The decades of religious knowledge he brought with him made Jim Bob's whole worldview moot. Jinger had never received anything like what he offered her. A means of ideological escape. A means of departing from her family's beliefs, not out of disobedience, but rather because she had a stronger, more sophisticated faith. The way Jinger's clothes changed wasn't merely a fashion statement. It was a statement of theology. According to the IBLP, a woman's holiness is based on her modesty, particularly when it comes to wearing dresses and skirts. Jinger wasn't simply disobeying a family tradition by wearing pants. She was openly expressing her disavowal of the faith that underpinned that regulation. Every fashion decision was a well-placed shot in a philosophical battle. The rescue mission is an exclusive theory. So why would a well-educated Northeastern pastor be so attracted to a girl from an Arkansas fundamentalist compound? The public narrative portrays it as a straightforward romance, but a convincing theory that theological analysts and former IBLP members agree with points to a deeper motive. Jinger might have been more than just a prospective wife to Jeremy Vuolo. He viewed her as a prisoner. The IBLP is generally considered a dangerous cult in Reformed and mainstream evangelical circles. It is viewed as spiritually harmful and theologically reprehensible. According to the belief, Jeremy is a man who is deeply. He may have seen courting Jinger as a kind of rescue mission because he is devoted to what he believes to be proper ideology. He wasn't only getting married. She was being freed from a false gospel by him. Her spirit was being delivered from the grip of legalism by him. His entire relationship with the family is reframed by this. During his courting, he was not merely being respectful. He was also calm and courteous. It was a deprogrammer's methodical approach. He needed to establish credibility, acquire access, and then carefully and gradually destroy the ideological. Jinger had spent her entire life in prison. He had to demonstrate to her, using the Bible and theology, that the IBLP's laws were not divine law, and that her father's power was not absolute. Jeremy's battle is not waged in court documents or on Twitter. It is a battle of ideas waged in books, podcasts, and pulpits. Take a look at the book titles that he and Jinger have co-authored. Our Hope. Hope for individuals ensnared in the IBLP, which frequently use shame and fear as control mechanisms. The idea of a grace-filled hope that is promised is revolutionary. Jinger's book, Becoming Free Indeed, My Story of Disentangling Faith from Fear, was published more recently. The title is a declaration of war in and of itself. She employs the term disentangling, which refers to the methodical, thorough process of separating the genuine faith from the IBLP's harmful, cult-like elements. The book is a methodical theological dismantling of Bill Gothard's doctrine and, thus, the whole basis of her father's worldview. Jeremy. His fingerprints are all over this book, even though he didn't write it. His purpose has come to an end with this. He has provided Jinger with the intellectual courage and spiritual foundation to publicly challenge her own father's beliefs. Thus, Jeremy Vo is Jim Bob's philosophical adversary. Jim Bob's activities are attacked by Derick Dillard. Jeremy Vo challenges his whole world. He is destroying the Duggar Empire's basic foundation. He's not merely attempting to separate from his wife, Dad. He is attempting to disprove the idolatry of the God her father established. He doesn't have to shout or file a lawsuit. All he has to do is preach. And he is creating a new rival theological kingdom with each sermon he delivers and each book Jinger produces under his direction. For any other Duggar who might be listening, it provides a route to freedom. From the outside, the rebel is fighting a legal battle. From a distance, the theologian is engaged in an ideological conflict. However, what about the person who remained? The person who inhabits the heart of the kingdom, who seems obedient but whose own statements point to a man in danger. The internal pressure point is him. The possibility of a civil war that would completely destroy the Duggar Empire. Analysis of assets. The crisis loyalist. The third asset is Jessa Duggar's spouse, Ben Seawald. Jim Bob Duggar would have resembled the early Ben Seawald if he had been able to construct a son-in-law in a laboratory. When he started dating Jessa, he was a teenager and the youngest of the first 3 sons-in-law. He openly admired the Duggar family before he was a member of it, was homeschooled, and had a strong religious conviction. He wasn't a well-established professional with a life outside the Duggar world, unlike Derick. He wasn't a polished thinker with a developed, strong theology as Jeremy was. On the surface, he was a blank slate. He was pliable. Ben was the epitome of loyalty. He was assimilated into the family structure with amazing effectiveness. Not only did he become a member of the family after marrying Jessa, but he was absorbed by it. He then relocated to Duggar property, where he lived in a home that belonged to the patriarch of the family. He even did odd chores and tutored the younger kids for Jim Bob for a while. His plot was incorporated into the Duggar brand, and he became a mainstay on Counting On. As the plan called for, he and Jessa bore children swiftly, extending the dynasty. Ben appeared to be the ideal example of Jim Bob's patriarchal system working. He was the obedient prince who worked for the monarch in the kingdom's center. However, a silent and serious problem was simmering beneath the surface of the devoted subject. There was more to Ben Seawald than meets the eye. He was a thinker. Additionally, he was residing in the core of a system that was starting to show signs of weakness. Ben was imprisoned within the royal walls, compelled to face the contradictions daily, while Jeremy was constructing a new kingdom miles away and Derick was getting ready for an external attack. He does not engage in overt disobedience in his struggle. It is the much more complicated and tormented conflict of a guy attempting to make sense of his world and conscience. He is the crisis loyalist. Inside information. The calling of the pastor. Ben's spiritual journey was the first indication of his internal divergence. He wasn't satisfied with being Jessa Duggar's spouse. He sensed that being a pastor was his calling. For Jim Bob, this was not an issue in and of itself. Ben intended to become a pastor who directly challenged the authority of the IBLP, but the pastor's son-in-law is attractive. Ben didn't look for ordination via a ministry connected to the IBLP. He later became a pastor at a small church in Springdale, Arkansas, after starting down a more conventional route. More significantly, Ben was greatly impacted by Calvinism and Reformed theology just like Jeremy Vo. He started reading the writings of theologians such as John Piper, John Calvin, and, most importantly, preacher Charles Spurgeon from the 19th century. This appears to be merely theological inside baseball to the uninformed observer. However, within the Duggar universe, it's a monumental change. Often referred to as the Prince of Preachers, Charles Spurgeon was well known for his forceful criticisms of legalism and artificial religious structures. The IBLP's checklist-based approach to holiness is fundamentally at odds with the radical grace gospel Jesus preached. Spurgeon's acceptance by Ben Seaworld went beyond simple taste. It was a silent act of rebellion. The IBLP had poisoned the well from which he was extracting his intellectual and spiritual water. He was gaining knowledge from a historical person who probably believed that Bill Gothard's ideas were heretical. His public character, especially in his sermons, started to reflect this intellectual journey. Even while we don't have access to all of Ben C's sermons, there is a definite trend in his public remarks, YouTube videos, and social media posts. He keeps coming back to the same topics which we may examine. The focus on grace over works is not one of the themes of the IBLP show. IBLP instruction is subtly work-based, as about your actions to keep God's favor. Ben gave an impassioned sermon on the meaning of salvation in a video that was uploaded to the SeaWorld Family YouTube page. Now listen to his language. Salvation is not a ladder you climb to God through your good behavior. It is a rescue rope that God lowers to you when you are drowning. You contribute nothing to your rescue except the faith to grab the rope. His is his statement, and we are paraphrasing the main point. You climb a ladder as opposed to a rescue rope. One suggests human labor. The other suggests supernatural intervention and complete powerlessness. This difference is not insignificant. It completely reverses the IBLP's emphasis on individual performance. He is telling his congregation, and by implication any members of his family who might be observing, that their high courtship standards, their modest attire, and their adherence to rules don't add anything to their salvation. For a family that believes that their distinct way of life is what makes them morally upright, this is a theological bomb. The rejection of extra-biblical rules is shown in Exhibit B. The IBLP is notorious for its basic life principles, which are a collection of regulations and precepts formulated by Bill Gothard and given the same weight as the Bible. Ben, on the other hand, has made it a point to limit his teaching to the Bible. He discussed the idea of Christian freedom in another online conversation. He discussed how believers might disagree on contentious issues, like as music, entertainment, and lifestyle, while still maintaining their moral integrity. Decisions that are not specifically prohibited by the Bible. He maintained that tying the gospel to laws created by man is a kind of legalism that enslaves believers. Consider how explosive that statement would be in his environment. A mountain of additional scriptural regulations forms the foundation of the Duggar identity. There are certain dress codes, chaperone dates, no dancing, and no contemporary music. Ben is openly saying that these regulations are not only unnecessary, but they may even be detrimental to someone's religious beliefs. He is confirming the very liberties that his sisters-in-law, Jill and Jinger, have been punished for accepting have come from within the kingdom's borders. He is giving the insurrection theological justification. The challenge to authority is shown in Exhibit C. The most delicate and hazardous part of his internal revolt is this. The authority of the IBLP is absolute. You don't doubt your leadership. Ben has started to gently introduce a higher principle, though, which is the authority of one's own conscience under the guidance of Scripture. This leads us to our most convincing exclusive explanation, which has been assembled by seasoned family analysts and former IBLP members who have tracked Ben's development. Exclusive theory. The reformers take a chance. According to the theory, Ben Seaworld is aware of his special position. He is aware that Derick has been banished as a result of his overt disobedience. He is aware of Jeremy's successful yet aloof ideological distance. The only person who still has frequent, direct access to the family center is Ben. He's not a disobey. He's a reformer. He has no intention of destroying the kingdom by fire. He is attempting to overthrow the Indai in a covert, bloodless coup. He uses subversion and infiltration as his tactics. Living on Duggarland, he keeps up the impression of loyalty by showing up to family gatherings to preserve his place at the table. He stays away from Jim Bob directly. Yet he is methodically presenting a new theology from his pulpit and in his private discussions with other family members, a theology of grace, freedom, and analytical reasoning. The king is not being attacked by him. He is attempting to persuade each of the king's subjects individually. His strategy is long-term. His actions are sowing doubts about the IBLP. He is demonstrating to his younger brothers and sisters-in-law that being a devoted Christian does not have to mean submitting to a patriarchal structure based on artificial regulations. The internal pressure point is him. And the biggest unknown in this whole struggle is whether he succeeds or fails. If he is successful, he may change the Duggar legacy for the better. The last hope for internal reform will be lost if he fails, or if his subtle rebellion is caught and he is expelled. Then the family may become irreparably broken. The dynasty's future may depend on him, as he maps the lands while balancing a tightrope between theology and relationships. We must examine a map in order to completely understand the strategic terrain of this Cold War. Being close to the patriarch has always been a factor in power in the Duggar culture. This is the kingdom of Jim Bob, the seat of sovereignty. The whole family revolved around this focal point for years. When his kids got married, they were supposed to live close by and stay in his orbit. However, these borders have been drastically redrawn on the map of the Duggar Civil War. Examine Ben Sewald's position first. The family house is only a few kilometers away from here. He is a vassal reliant on the king's resources due to his physical proximity, yet he is also in the most strategically important place. Inside the castle walls, he is an agent. His quiet preaching and modest changes in beliefs are not occurring in a vacuum. They are taking place right in the middle of the kingdom. His sermons have the power to spread across the family more quickly than any external tweet or YouTube video. His possible revolt is the most perilous because of his closeness. Derick Dillard comes next. Just a short drive away, he and Jill have made their own region, yet from an ideological standpoint they might as well be on another continent. Even though they are physically close, this is the first significant perimeter breach. They established a buffer area. Derick began his legal and public relations attacks from this separate base of operations. He is far enough away to prevent direct control, yet close enough to continue to pose a persistent threat. He is continuously opposing the capital from the surrounding rebel province. And Jeremy Vuolo comes next. His relocation to Los Angeles with Jinger wasn't merely a change of career. It was a brilliant strategic move. Their ideological divide is reflected directly in this enormous physical gap of more than 1,500 meters. Jeremy didn't only leave Jim Bob's sphere of influence by relocating to Los Angeles. He stepped into another solar system. He took Jinger away from the stresses of daily life, the suffocating group and the ongoing monitoring. Consider the compound. They were able to dismantle her background and create a new identity because of this distance. It's no accident that Jinger's deepest. After moving to California, she made a public split with her family's beliefs by writing her book and wearing pants. Their freedom of speech is directly correlated with the physical distance. They may launch strong ideological attacks from their consulate on the West Coast without worrying about quick retaliation. They are now completely apart. The story is told on the map. There is no longer unity in the kingdom. It has broken up into separate areas. The local rebel base, the far-off rival, and the loyalist heartland under siege from within. Power of ideology. In addition to being a battle of ideas, the battle for the Duggar heritage is also a battle of location. The declaration of financial independence. Pay attention to the money in any dispute. Jim Bob's position as the only financial gatekeeper in the Duggar kingdom has always been inextricably linked to his power. He was in charge of the TLC funds. The properties belonged to him. He supplied the jobs. His ultimate instrument of control was this financial leverage. Financial security was the incentive for submission. Dissension was. Financial exile is the penalty. Only once they started to dissolve these financial ties and announce their own economic independence did the sons-in-law's covert conflict become feasible. Jeremy and Derick are the two most vocal critics. Their capacity to make a life independently of Jim Bob is closely correlated with their capacity to oppose him. Derick Dillard found himself in a vulnerable situation after being disconnected from TLC. We think this is what really made him radical. The urgency of needing to support his family. What drove him to law school was his freedom from his father-in-law's influence. His current position as a prosecutor and his pursuit of a law degree are more than just career choices. They are liberating financial acts. He builds his independence with each paycheck he receives, a barrier that lets him talk freely without worrying about being starved into silence. Jeremy Vo recognized this right away. He was a financially independent man when he joined the family. He followed his own professional route as a pastor. Jim Bob never gave him a job. He never resided in one of Jim Bob's homes. He was never reliant on the TLC salary. His financial independence served as a buffer. In other words, Jim Bob had no power over him. It was because they never had to beg her father for money that Jeremy was able to lead Jinger toward theological independence. He was untouchable due to his financial independence, which also enabled him to plan their calculated move to Los Angeles, a move that a family-dependent couple would not have been able to afford. Father. This leads us back to Ben Seawald, the loyalist in difficulty. The secret to comprehending his cautious, divided approach is his financial status. He was the most financially involved of the three for many years, working for the Duggar family while residing on their land. He was almost completely dependent. His unwillingness to engage in open combat can be explained by this. A public split from Jim Bob might have resulted in unemployment and destitution in addition to family banishment. However, even this is starting to alter now. Ben has obtained his role as a pastor in a church that is not under the Duggars' authority. This may be a tiny salary, but it belongs to him. It is a vital first step on the path to financial autonomy. It's possible that this new modest outside source of income is giving him the confidence to discuss his doctrinal disagreements more openly. He is constructing his own financial lifeboat gradually and methodically. He may be able to make his subtle internal revolt much louder if he can complete financial separation. The extent of his decline in his progress in obtaining financial independence from the monarchy would be clearly visible in the upcoming years. The verbal battle. After establishing their territories and securing their financial resources, the three princes have used a well-planned campaign of public declarations to fight their war. Instead of soldiers, blogs, books, sermons, and social media posts are being used to fight this battle. Furthermore, their approaches couldn't be more dissimilar. Derick Dillard, the renegade, is on one side. The direct accusation is his approach. He is the litigant, the whistleblower. His tools are legally informed tweets, tell-all books, and bombshell interviews. Duggar is accused of financial embezzlement by Dillard. Jill's book to reveal secrets in the family. Derick mentions contracts, financial exploitation, and deception. He criticizes the patriarch's behavior. His verbal battle is loud, public, and intended to do as much harm as possible to Jim Bob's credibility and the family's meticulously maintained public persona. He is engaged in an informational battle to influence the court of public opinion as well as possibly a real court of law. Jeremy Volo, the theologian, is in the middle. The ideological critique is his approach. Jim Bob's name never needs to be spoken. His conflict is more nuanced and, in some respects, more destructive. His tools include theological podcasts, academic publications, and well-crafted sermons. Jeremy challenges the patriarch's pillars of authority. He doesn't claim that Jim Bob is incorrect. Using centuries of Christian philosophy, he painstakingly shows why the system Jim Bob believes is theologically flawed. He undermines the legalism, modesty, and authority doctrines of the IBLP. The stroke is precise. He has no intention of winning a news cycle. He is attempting to prove that the entire belief system is a house built on sand by winning a struggle for the soul. Last but not least is Ben Seawald, the crisis loyalist. The subtle question is his strategy. The internal reformer is him. He uses questioning social media posts and cryptic sermons as weapons. Ben doesn't level charges or launch extensive ideological assaults. Rather, he sows doubtful seeds. He shares a quotation from a theologian who disagrees with the principles of the IBLP. His speech on Christian freedom subtly deviates from his family's norms. He poses inquiries. He uses hints and whispers to fight his verbal battle like a guerrilla campaign. While retaining plausible deniability to the patriarch, it is intended to be understood by those inside, such as his congregation and siblings-in-law. He is engaged in a conflict of attrition, gradually weakening the internal basis of rule. Three guys, three different approaches: the internal subversion, the philosophical attack, and the legal attack. Collectively, they depict a multi-front conflict for which the Duggar patriarch was wholly unprepared. This is the culmination of Jim Bob Duggar's massive patriarchal experiment. His basic misperception of the very folks he selected to continue his legacy was his worst error, the fatal fault in his grand scheme. He viewed them as inferiors, as resources to be obtained and controlled. He thought their allegiance to him, the patriarch, would take precedence over anything else. He never thought they would get to the position of leaders of their own groups, each with their own beliefs, plans, and future vision. He examined Derick Dillard for his religious beliefs and stability in his career, but he never saw the free-thinking, uncontrollable mind. Because of his polish and charisma, he embraced Jeremy Vaux. The man's theology was never understood, was a Trojan horse that would destroy the family's internal beliefs. Because of his loyalty and youth, he was drawn to Ben Seaworld. It was never expected that the silent follower would grow up and have his own conscience and voice. The foundation of Jim Bob Duggar's empire was total top-down control. However, he unintentionally invited three guys who would later make appeals to three distinct higher authorities. Derick Dillard invoked the power of the law, specifically the U.S. legal system. Jeremy made a plea to the historical Orthodox Christianity's theological authority. Additionally, Ben Seaworld is making an appeal to the biblically guided authority of conscience. The self-appointed authority of a family patriarch is subordinated to all three of these authorities. The Duggar Empire, which was once a single entity, has broken apart. Jim Bob's is no longer in charge of the story. These three men and their daughters now hold the responsibility for the Duggar name's future, the next generation's religion, and the family's legacy. Decided to support them. We believed we were viewing a family program. In reality, we were seeing a dynasty's ascent and decline. The patriarchal princes have come to seize the kingdom for themselves, not to serve the monarch. The battle of the secret is over. The civil war has started. The proof has been shown. The tactics have been exposed. This is your question now. In your opinion, whose son-in-law is the greatest danger to Jim Bob's authority? Are Derick's legal attacks direct? Ben's potential for internal disobedience, or Jeremy's compelling religious arguments? Click here to cast your vote, and then leave a comment below explaining your decision. An essential component of this continuing inquiry is your analysis. We appreciate your participation in the Duggar Report. Make sure you ring the bell and click the subscribe button if you want to read more in-depth analyses like this one, so you don't miss any updates. This is far from the end of the narrative, and we will continue to monitor every